So, dudes, little TDM discussion video again for you guys. But before we do that, a word from our sponsor, Keeps.com. So, for those who don't know, Keeps is a online service that helps men deal with hair loss. So, they do this through a very sophisticated network of staff members associated through Keeps that includes a lot of doctors and physicians that will literally examine you, right? And you can do this all online. And they don't just give you the stuff in the mail and then just dip, right? It's a 24/7 support system. It's like a hair loss support system. There's clinical workers, doctors, prescribers, care specialists, people that know a lot about men's hair loss that can answer any questions that you have. And they have a lot of experience with this issue because it is a very common issue. 2 out of 3 men will experience some form of hair loss by the time they reach age 35. So if you notice that something's going on, it's important to act sooner rather than later. Hair loss stops with Keeps. So to get 50% off of your first order, go to keeps.com/Gregor, keeps.com/Gregor, 50% off. There's also a link in the description. And thanks again to Keeps for sponsoring this video. I'm getting over whatever the hell I had that was making it kind of difficult for me to talk at length, which is why I haven't really been streaming much because that weird thing that happens, whenever you get sick and your throat gets messed up, you don't really want to use your vocal cords for extended periods of time, often hours at a time, while you're streaming. So I kind of avoided that. That's also why the Ozami how-to is a little bit late. I apologize for that. But I figured I'd, upload something for Monday anyway, where she got this 1.5 scope, and then Yubi said, "Oh wow, we didn't expect that to happen. The pick rate went up," which was a bit strange. I in my opinion, personally. But yeah, her pick rate went up. Her effectiveness with the gun also went up, and then they increased the recoil. And the most controversial gun nerf, relatively recently, was the P10 Ronin nerf for Mozzie and Aruni, which I think in large part kind of contributed to a temporary setback in Aruni's pick rate in Pro League. It's kind of leveled out again to around like 30-40%. But there was a period at which it was just really low, and I think that was because people just weren't really used to trying to use that weapon, the Mark 10 DMR, in a competitive environment where you're fighting against people with fully automatic weapons. DMRs are never used as an option, right? At a high level of play, they're usually used when you don't really have any other option. And so when the Roni got dumpstered, it put Aruni in a really difficult position. And to be fair, it did get dumpstered. I know some people are going to say, "Oh, well, Greg, I still use it. I still think it's fine." That's great for you. and I'm sure there are plenty of other people that can use it. But it's definitely not, A, nearly as good as it used to be, and B, objectively worse than some secondary guns that we have in the game. Cough, cough. SMG-11. Right now, the Roni is like a 16-bullet magazine. So that's less than the SMG-11. Slower fire rate. Less damage. The only thing it has going for it is its recoil. Right? And even then, the recoil is still relatively high. And you might as well just use the Mark 10. That's where a lot of people are coming from. And the reason people were so frustrated by it, the round of nerfs in the first place, was because it seemed like Ubisoft was making a decision based entirely on data, right? High kill rate with this particular gun, and weren't really looking at the context of the data that they were looking at. So obviously, one-shot headshot is going to benefit every single freaking gun in this game with low recoil to start, right? That's going to help you out a lot. Even the UMP-45, right, can be usable because it's a laser beam. Right now, I'm using Thorn's UZK. A lot of people really like the UZK. It's kind of a slept-on gunner gun right now for anime profile pick players, right? Its fire rate isn't particularly high, but its damage is okay. Laser beam recoil to hit headshots with. Little wallbang that I hit there, right? So anything where you don't really have to adjust the recoil is already good. You put a good fire rate on it, and you can take any gun with crap damage and make it serviceable if you can hit heads with it. And that was kind of the balancing act with one-shot headshot. Attackers had powerful assault rifles with high body shot T to K, right? You could still reliably take down targets with body shots. You didn't necessarily have to go for the head. And defenders, their balancing act there to help counteract the powerful weapons of attackers was, if you hit the head, you can still win the gunfight. So there was a trade-off, right? There was a little bit of everything going on. And here's my thing, right? I may not agree with every single decision that Ubisoft makes in terms of gun balancing, but overall, I do think that the meta in terms of gun balancing in Rainbow Six Siege as it stands right now is solid. Aside from the LMG thing. The LMG thing is a little bit stupid for like different reasons. I personally think the LMG meta is a little bit of I don't know what you expected kind of moment. Like you kind of slowed down the movement patch after patch, and then now there's no diminishing returns in terms of using LMGs versus assault rifles. So like, I'm not really sure what was supposed to happen there. But the entire question of, you know, if we modify one-shot headshot, right, is that going to make that go away? Well, it's not, obviously, right? Because the LMGs aren't powerful because of one-shot headshot. The LMGs are powerful because, let's be honest, okay, recoil in Siege, there is no recoil. Okay, this game has laser beam guns. Like, I understand that recoil from a gun-to-gun basis is an important balancing metric in the context of Siege, right? That data confined to Siege is important to look at. But compared to other FPS games, this game doesn't really have much recoil at all. Like, I'm going to be 100% straight. So you have laser beam guns, and there's a benefit to just kind of spraying at head level with one-shot headshot, right? That helps LMGs to a certain degree. But it also just makes it to the point where there's a lot of weapons where there's no point in running anything but an LMG. And the reason that it's powerful isn't one-shot headshot. It's because they have 150 bullets that they can just fire forever. And when you have a game with laser beam recoil and an infinite magazine, then you can just, you know, you're basically just kind of swinging a lightsaber around. Like that's kind of what the gameplay is in Siege, honestly. That's what it feels like to me sometimes. But yeah, you take that and you multiply the effect of low recoil with the LMG meta right now. There's no trade-off in terms of the slow ADS time anymore. There's no trade-off in terms of the gun handling anymore. Now, me personally, I think that there has to be a bigger penalty for running an LMG. I think that there needs to be something like a set ammo cap. You know, you have less bullets compared to other weapon classes, and that's going to be the trade-off. Ultimately, I feel like removing one-shot headshot or modifying one-shot headshot seems like an idea that sounds good on paper, and then when you try to execute it, it's just going to be it's going to be a shit show. Because there's too many moving parts here. There's too many moving parts in terms of the actual Siege mechanics and how the way that you interact with the map is going to change entirely at this rate, right? You're going to have to consider, okay, well, you can't get one-shot headshots through floors anymore. So you can't take advantage of that mechanic if you get good intel and you manage to get a good shot on somebody, right? So for every weird kind of random wallbang that happens that's not skilled, well, you've taken that away, right? Because we remove one-shot headshot. And then you take away a lot of kills that were skilled too, right? You take away a lot of player agency there. I understand that there are some gunfights you might lose that feel cheesy or cheap because somebody just kind of waved their cursor around to get a one-shot headshot. That does happen. And it's very frustrating when it does happen. But those are relatively rare in the grand scheme of things. What I think we need to have a conversation about instead is, you know, are we having an issue with one-shot headshot because the mechanic is bad, or because the balancing of the game is in a bizarre state? And I think there's more conversations to be had about Siege's balancing as a whole, more so than the one-shot headshot mechanic itself. I stand by this statement. Siege's gunplay has always been kind of an afterthought to me. I think Siege's gunplay is a little bit overrated. What interests me about the game is the strategic aspect of it, the tactics-based aspect of it, the chess game of it. That's what interests me. However, I don't think that means that we should drive people away who like the gunplay, and we shouldn't malign people who thrive in a gunplay-based environment in Siege as brain dead. you know, or just aim bros, right? They don't know how to play the game properly, right? I think that's a little pretentious. I think what the game really needs is a little bit better netcode, personally. A little bit better netcode, better anti-cheat, and maybe a port to a new engine 3 years, 4 years down the road from now. I think it's going to be really necessary. But what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Deuces.